The woman who knocks 3 times every night. Introduction. A knock in the dead of night. We all hear strange sounds at night. A creak in the floorboards, a tap against the window, the wind whispering through the cracks in the walls. We tell ourselves it's nothing, just the house settling, just a coincidence. But what if it wasn't? What if something or someone was trying to get in? This is my story. A story about the knocks, a story about the woman, a story about why I can never sleep near a door again. The first night, 3 knocks. It started on a Wednesday night. I was home alone. My roommate, Jake, had gone to visit his family for the week, leaving me with the apartment to myself. At around 2:33 a.m., just as I was drifting off to sleep, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks at my bedroom door. My eyes shot open. I held my breath, my mind racing. Did I imagine it? The apartment was locked. The security system was on. I was alone. I reached for my phone and checked the time. 2:33 a.m. Silence stretched through the room. Maybe I had dreamed it. I waited, my ears straining for any sound. After a few minutes of silence, I convinced myself I had imagined it. I rolled over and tried to sleep, but deep down, something felt wrong. The second night, she's still there. The next night, I stayed up later than usual, scrolling through my phone in bed. Then, at exactly 2:33 a.m., knock, knock, knock. I froze. It was the same 3 knocks, the same deliberate rhythm. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding. "Jake?" I called out, even though I knew he wasn't home. No response. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept under my bed and tiptoed toward the door. I hesitated, then swung it open. No one was there. The hallway was empty. I checked the front door, still locked. Windows shut. I was alone. But then, as I turned to go back to my room, I saw it, a single wet footprint in the middle of the hallway, a bare footprint, and it was facing my door. The third night, I saw her. I barely slept after that. I considered leaving, staying at a friend's place, but I felt stupid. It had to be my mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. The third night, I sat up in bed, waiting. 2:30 a.m. My hands clenched the sheets, my heart hammering in my chest. 2:31. I held my breath. 2:32. The room felt colder. Then knock, knock, knock. I couldn't move. The sound wasn't just at my bedroom door this time. It was inside the room, behind me. I turned my head slowly, and that's when I saw her. A woman, standing in the far corner of my room. Her skin was gray, her hair was wet, and her eyes had no pupils. She just stood there, watching. Then she raised her hand and knocked on the wall. Knock, knock, knock. I screamed. The truth, who she was. The next day, I did what I should have done from the start. I started digging. I asked my landlord about the apartment's history. At first, he was hesitant, but eventually he told me something that made my blood run cold. Years ago, a woman had lived here. She was found dead in the bathtub, drowned, alone. The weirdest part? She had been discovered 3 days after she died, at exactly 2:33 a.m. And the person who found her had knocked on the bathroom door 3 times before opening it. Knock, knock, knock. The final night, she wanted me to open the door. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat up watching the door, waiting, and at 2:33 a.m., the knocking came again, but this time it didn't stop. Knock, 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 over and over, louder, harder, more desperate. I could hear her breathing outside the door, ragged, wet, and then a whisper. "Let me in." The escape. I ran. I grabbed my keys and bolted out of the apartment. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I slept in a motel that night, and the next morning, I called my landlord. I broke my lease. I moved out that same day. I never went back. The aftermath. She's still knocking. It's been months. I moved to a new city, a new apartment. I thought I was safe. But last night, at exactly 2:33 a.m., I woke up, and from the other side of my bedroom door, I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. She found me. She's still knocking, and I know she won't stop until I open the door. The ghost who sits in my chair. Introduction: the chair that's never empty. Some people say that ghosts haunt the places where they died. Others say they return to the places they loved the most. But what if a ghost doesn't haunt a house or a person? What if it chooses just one object? Not a cursed painting or a haunted mirror, but something as ordinary as a chair that never stays empty. a chair that always seems occupied, even when no one is sitting in it. This is my story, and why I will never have an empty chair in my bedroom again. The beginning, the chair's strange behavior. It started with something small. So small I barely noticed it at first. Every morning when I woke up, my eyes would drift toward the old wooden chair in the corner of my bedroom. It was a simple antique, the kind you might find in an old house, with curved armrests and a dark brown finish. It had belonged to the previous tenant, and my landlord had left it behind. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I started to notice things. Every morning, the chair's cushion looked slightly pressed down, as if someone had been sitting in it. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe the cushion settled that way on its own. Maybe it was just my imagination. But deep down, something felt wrong. Then one night, I saw it move. The rocking chair. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, the room dimly lit by the glow of the screen. The only sound was the soft hum of my ceiling fan. Everything was still, and then I heard it. Creak! I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. Slowly, I looked up. The chair rocked, just slightly, just enough for me to notice. I stared at it, my breath caught in my throat. I told myself it was just an illusion, a trick of the light, but deep down, I knew better. Then, as if sensing my gaze, the chair stopped moving, perfectly still, as if someone had just settled into it. The whisper. The next night, I couldn't stop thinking about the chair. I kept my bedside lamp on, refusing to sleep in darkness. But nothing happened. I stayed up, watching. The chair remained still. No movement, no sound. I started to feel silly, like I had scared myself over nothing. Finally, I turned off the light and rolled onto my side, determined to sleep. That's when I heard it. A whisper, right by my ear. Don't sit there. My eyes shot open. I turned on the lamp, scanning the room. No one was there. But the chair, the imprint on the cushion was deeper than ever. The rules of the chair. Something inside me told me that chair wasn't normal. It didn't belong here. And whoever or whatever sat in it didn't want to be disturbed. The next morning, I made a decision. I was done with that chair. I grabbed it, dragged it out of my bedroom, and shoved it into the basement. That night, I slept peacefully. No creaking, no whispers, no unsettling feelings. But the next morning, the chair was back in my room. The shadow in the chair. I knew something was wrong. I knew that chair shouldn't be in my bedroom. I locked the basement door. I even placed heavy objects in front of it. There was no way it could have come back. And yet, there it was. I tried to ignore it. I tried to pretend it wasn't there. But at exactly 2:33 a.m., I made the mistake of looking at it. And I saw something. A dark shadow sat in the chair. Faint, but unmistakable. A human-like shape, completely motionless. Watching me. I wanted to scream, I wanted to move, but I was frozen in terror. Then, the shadow stood up. The chair let out a long, groaning creak. The history of the chair. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed answers. The next day, I called my landlord and asked if anything strange had ever happened in the apartment. He hesitated before answering. Then, in a hushed voice, he told me something that made my blood run cold. The previous tenant, he had been obsessed with that chair. Sat in it every single day. Wouldn't let anyone else sit there. Then one day, he just never got up. They found him still sitting there, dead. And now, I think he's still there. The final night. That night I made a decision. I had to destroy the chair. I dragged it outside. I poured gasoline over it, and I lit a match. The flames consumed the wood, turning it to ash. The chair was gone. I thought I was safe. But at exactly 2:33 a.m., I woke up, and I saw it. A dark figure, standing where the chair used to be, watching me. Then, it sat down. Even though the chair no longer existed, and I heard it. The sound of creaking wood, as if the chair was still there, still occupied. The aftermath. I moved out the next day, left everything behind. I wanted nothing to do with that place. But sometimes, even now in my new home, I wake up in the middle of the night, and I hear it. The sound of someone shifting their weight in a chair, even though there's no chair in my room. And I know he's still sitting there, waiting, watching, making sure no one ever sits in his chair again. I never noticed it before. The room. It wasn't there when I moved in. My apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and an open-plan kitchen that connected to the living room. I had lived here for 2 years, long enough to memorize every inch of space. But last night, as I was walking to my bedroom, something felt off. A door. A door that had never existed before. It stood at the end of the hallway, opposite my bedroom. A simple wooden door, white like the others, but different somehow. The handle was tarnished and the wood looked older, as if it had been there for decades. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and looked again. Had I been so tired that I somehow forgot about an entire room in my own apartment? That wasn't possible. I placed my hand on the doorknob. Cold. Ice cold. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned it. The door opened with a soft creak, revealing a dark, empty space beyond. A room that shouldn't exist. I fumbled for the light switch. Click. A dim, yellowish light flickered to life. The room was small, like a storage closet. Dust coated the wooden floor, and cobwebs clung to the corners. The air smelled stale, like something had been trapped inside for years. But the strangest thing was the chair. A single wooden chair sat in the center of the room, facing the door, as if someone had been waiting for me. My skin prickled with unease. I stepped inside, the floor creaking beneath my feet. The walls were covered in old wallpaper, peeling at the edges. There were no windows, no decorations, nothing except that solitary chair. I reached out, my fingers brushing the rough surface of the wood. And then I heard it. A whisper. It came from the walls, from the floor, from the chair itself. A voice so faint, I couldn't make out the words. My breath hitched, and I stumbled back, heart hammering against my ribs. I turned and ran out, slamming the door shut behind me. My hands trembled as I pressed against the wood, expecting someone to push back from the other side. But nothing happened. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the apartment made me jump. My mind raced with questions. Had I imagined it? Was I losing my grip on reality? By morning, I convinced myself it was a dream, a trick of the mind. But when I walked into the hallway, the door was still there. I should have left it alone. I should have ignored it, but I didn't. I opened the door again, expecting the same eerie, empty space. But this time, the chair wasn't empty. Someone was sitting there, a shadowy figure, featureless, its head slowly tilting toward me. My breath caught in my throat as I stumbled back, slamming the door shut once more. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. I called my landlord, desperate for answers. "There's a room in my apartment that shouldn't be there," I said, my voice shaking. There's something inside." Silence. Then a quiet, hesitant response. You opened it?" My stomach dropped. "You know about it?" A long sigh on the other end. "Listen carefully. Lock the door. Do not go inside again, and whatever you do, do not sit in the chair." The line went dead. I turned back to the door, my pulse pounding in my ears. The warning echoed in my mind. Do not sit in the chair. But the door was slightly ajar now, and the chair was empty again. Something was waiting for me, and I knew deep down that it wouldn't wait forever.